Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Moonlight and Outdoors podcast. If you hadn't already, please go on over and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as our Instagram and Facebook. Thanks, guys. Here we are today. We have the man of the hour here. I had a little bone to pick with him before the show. Got Torry Cook with us. I just jumped on a sound pack last week, and then this dude went out and tell him. I'll just let you break the news to him. What'd you do to me, Torry?
Well, I didn't intentionally do it to you. That was wasn't my plan, but you're giving me a little grief over it. But we just released our latest sound pack, and I was telling Justin before the show started up, we timed this for this particular time of the year because these are breeding sounds that I recorded a year ago, and I recorded them right during the peak of breeding, and we timed that. Of course, you can't release them then because by the time everything hits, we get them on the website, it'd be too late for breeding. So anyway, we recorded those sounds and we timed that to release and hit for peak breeding this year. So those just hit the website and today, and I didn't tell Justin about it, so he's mad at me.
I'll forgive you, man. It's going to take some time, but I'll forgive you. So I do want to say, first off, I appreciate Torry, I appreciate you coming on a whole awful lot, and I'll probably say that a couple more times before we're done here. But our audio and our video are only as good as our internet will support, so bear with us on this. But we just wanted to come on, and we wanted to talk a little bit about, and I asked Torry if we could just cover maybe the eastern coyote hunting, you know, kind of leave out that western side. They have all their own podcasts and different things. They get plenty of attention out west, but kind of wanted to talk about the eastern coyote calling a little bit. And Torry said, that sounds great.
Yeah, I'm game for whatever
yeah.
you want to talk about.
And I think that the way things are looking, if we have a good time here, Torry and I might do this a little bit more often, hopefully.
Be glad to.
So what I was thinking about, first off, I did purchase his last MFK sound pack. And I think some of the famous calls off of there, obviously, is the Pound Town. For those of you that are familiar with MFK sounds, that actually was able to test it out on Saturday night, and we called in a 45.5-pound male, which is big for me because I'll be honest, my biggest coyote ever was just 46 pounds. So that was a big coyote for me here in Indiana. So. And then there's a sound on there called Table Scraps that I really liked, and they're Pup in Distress. It's kind of a pup in distress, that Mama.
Yeah, Mama. If you go to our YouTube channel and you watch the All About Coyote series, you can actually see the footage of where that sound originated from. And what it was, those pups are, I think they were 4 or 5 weeks old at the time, running around. I happened to be recording them, and one of them falls in a stump hole. And the sound that came from that was Mama, and also Find Me Wine House. And it's that pup in that hole. And I didn't put it, you can watch the coyote fall in. It's a legit sound, just like it would happen in the woods. That pup falls in, the other pups move away, playing, get distance from it, and that little pup starts howling, doing those. And that's extremely young in my experience. I haven't had coyote pups do much howling at that age, and it goes to howling in that stump hole. Of course, I swap over from, continue to record with my video, but I also get I keep it with me all the time. I've got my good audio recorder, and of course I started recording that sound, and that's where Mama howls came from. And early in the year, that spring time frame, when I first started using that sound, I think the very first time I played it, I called in a quad with it. And
oh, wow.
Well, it's a pretty good sound, especially in that early time frame.
Hey, I used it some over the weekend and was digging it because it just had that real nice high pitch to it. And and I thought it was going to be on fire. I can't remember specifically if I did stay in the MFK. I was on my Fox Pro, and I stayed in the MFK all night long because I wanted to try out all those sounds. So we called in 6 coyotes in about 4 or 5 hours in Indiana. That's pretty outstanding. I'm not going to tell you how many of them we didn't kill, but
hey, As long as
Yeah,
you're calling them in, at least you got a chance.
that's right. We did. And I don't know if it was just, right place, the right time, but it probably had something to do with those MFK sounds. What do you think?
Oh, I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
But that's
Um,
what I like to hear, man. I was telling you before, when I love to call up coyotes with my own stuff and these sounds that we record, that's great. But when other people take them out and like you did, take them out and have success with them, that's the best part because then I know I've really got something that's good, and that's the most satisfying part of taking the time to record all that stuff and get it out there.
yeah. And I'll tell you, we did a review on one of our videos. We did a review on Fox Pro versus Lucky Duck, and that was specifically the Revolt versus the Shockwave, which are two very popular calls that are out right now. Caller. And The biggest thing that we had for the Shockwave at the time was being able to put MFK sound files on it, and that's in our review.
Right.
And we've actually gotten some feedback back on that video, saying that that's definitely one of the largest positives of owning a Fox Pro right now. So I think
Right.
that relationship that you and Fox Pro have built up, is that kind of new? Is that this year, right?
It's almost 2 years old now, I believe. Uh, we this yeah, it'll be 2 years old right about now, pretty close to now.
Okay. Well,
But
I remember when it was announced, and I thought, well, that's interesting, but
yeah,
doesn't seem like
it
it's
was
been.
about yeah, it was about this time of the year 2 years ago. This will make 2 years with Fox Pro, and it's been a good deal.
Yeah. Can you buy Fox Pro stock from the factory with MFK sounds loaded on them?
Not from Fox Pro. You've got to get MFK edition Fox Pros directly from MFK, and
Okay.
MFK sounds directly from MFK.
Gotcha. Well, that's still interesting. And I'm just going to say, I know this is a Torry Cook MFK show here, but Torry, you've had good things to say about Rick Pallett when we were talking on the phone, and his sounds are equal to your sounds in the Lucky Duck world. He's got some fabulous sounds, and that was the main thing that I liked on the Lucky Duck. And when we were doing that review, I you know I just had to try the MFK to see if I could get anything to stand up to what that Lucky Duck was having. And
Yeah,
my hunting partner, sure enough, he's like, man, I'm really digging MFK. I kind of want to get a Fox Pro now. So
yeah. I'm actually glad you brought that up about Rick and Lucky Duck. Uh, a lot of times, I get phone calls and stuff like that, and people just think that there's this rivalry or competition between me and Rick, and I guess because of the brands that we're associated with, maybe there is from the business sense, but from my perspective, there's not. I actually think that Rick has a really good sound library. I think he's doing basically the same thing that I'm doing. We have very similar sounds. And another thing, I think Rick is, I don't know him personally, but just from what I found out about him and watching him and some of the stuff that he says, watching his hunts, stuff like that, I think that we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. I think he got into the industry the same way that I did. I think he loved the hunting and he's passionate about, knowing about the coyotes and all of that stuff. And I think that's what got him into it. I think he's legit. I think when he tells you something, it's what he believes and is true. And I'm the same way. When I do something with my sounds, if I tell you it's a particular sound or anything I say, I 100% believe it, and I'm honest about all of it. And so I think at some point, somewhere down the line, Rick and I will probably sit down sometime and talk about coyotes and just trade information back and forth. And even though I'm with Fox Pro, he's with Lucky Duck, I hope both of us do great. I've got all I need, and I hope he does really, really well with everything.
yeah,
So there is no rivalry on my part with Rick. I think he's got good stuff, and I think I think he's somebody I could sit down with and have a good time.
that's awesome. And that's extremely consistent with one of our phone conversations that you and I had in the past. And when we brought up Rick's name, that's just about the same story you told me then. So
Yeah.
that's pretty
And,
awesome.
and I can tell you, right. Yeah. And it had nothing to do, the phone conversation was private. I know this will be public.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm always blunt and honest. If you bring up other names, I might not have as much good stuff to say. So you
sure.
better be careful who you ask me about,
I'll
especially when it comes to the sound library stuff. But
Um, so let's get back onto some of your sounds, if you don't mind,
okay,
and just talk a little bit about and some of this is for me. I'm not too proud to say it, but I'm going to be going on a trip to Illinois next weekend, or actually this weekend, and I'm going to try to come up with a call sequence that's going to work good for me. And I know that when people are talking to someone like you, Torry, that you specialize in sounds, that it just seems appropriate to talk to you about sound, call sequence and what's working and what time of the year. And it's totally fine that we just stick with the MFK game pack, or whatever you call your sound pack.
right.
Um, so, I don't have the most recent one, but I'm going to go out there and I'm going to give her hell, and I'm going to try to use everything that you sold me.
Yeah, and I always shoot people straight on that too, based on they can take the information and apply it to whatever they have. I hope they have MFK, and if they don't, I hope they try it. But as far as the sounds and sound sequences go, the way that I kind of do my stuff based on time of the year, and since we're in winter, that's what I'll and breeding season type stuff, that's what I'll talk about. But I'm big on this time of the year. As you go from spring to summer to fall to winter, my sequences grow. So my sound sequences this time of the year are as broad and as big as they get at any time of the year. And that's because the coyotes are doing multiple things, and you have to trigger them. And a lot of times you don't know what that's going to be. So there's not a specific sound sequence or set of two or three sounds that are going to work. And the way that I approach something, I've actually got Greg Gallagher down here right now. We call him No Culls. We're fishing to hunt the next 2 or 3 days. And when I start out tomorrow, we'll start running through stuff to try to figure out what those coyotes are biting on. And
Yeah.
so that sound sequence is going to consist of multiple sounds. And I'm going to I call them trigger categories. I'm just going to try to hit two or three sounds from each trigger category until I find something that's consistent. And then I may, you know, squish that down a little bit. But typically, what I'm going to do, and I'm talking strictly targeting coyotes.
Mm.
Um, well, let me back up and I'll say that if you're, because this would work for coyotes or if you have bobcats, fox too. Typically, this time of the year, a lot of times I will start, unless I'm specifically targeting a coyote, I will start with some prey distress sounds. And I like to start with something like from my library, I'll start with woods rat, goody woody woodpecker, rodents and birds is what I typically start with. And I'm probably playing, a minute or two. I actually put a lot of dead space in my sequences. So if I run a sound for, 30 seconds, a minute, a lot of times I'll pause it. And I don't have a set time or set delay in there,
Hmm.
but I want to give them two or three sounds from that prey category. And I'm going to play, the rodents. I'm going to play the birds. I'm going to play the rabbits mixed in. And a lot of times I mix that sound sequence up where I may start with that woods rat and then go into something from vocals and then come back to prey distress. But since we're more so talking about coyotes, it'll be easier for me to break down a coyote sequence. And if I'm specifically targeting coyotes, I'm going to start with two or three lone howls. And I pretty much do that year round. But I'll start with two or three lone howls. I might go into, if I think I've set down pretty tight to some coyotes, I might start with that woods rat or a bird, goody woody, cotton bomb, something like that for a short period of time, and then I'm going straight to the lone howls if I don't start with them.
Hmm.
And I'm big on vocals and a lot of vocals, and especially this time of the year. But I'll start with those lone howls. I'll do two or three lone howls usually, wait a couple minutes, and then I usually answer with another lone howl. And this is a great time to bring up something else in that, people get hung up on male versus female, old versus young. After having coyotes and watching them and learning about them, you don't have to get hung up on that. Just play a lone howl and wait and then answer it with you could use two males if you wanted to. They don't care. It's just a strange coyote to them, I think, but I'll run those howls. And then once I go through the howls, I'm typically going to go into what I call a social interaction sound. And that's when you see these coyotes, and I learned this from watching mine. When they come back together, they will typically meet and greet, and a lot of times you'll have it, I call it, gibberish, just coyote gibberish, and they'll get there and make all these and yipping sounds and stuff like that. It's usually pretty subtle, but I'll go into those social interaction sounds for a couple minutes, like submissive beggar or submissive whines. And once I run through a couple of minutes of that, I'm going to swap probably back over this time of the year. I'm probably going to swap back over to a prey distress sound. And that's where I'm probably going to string together 2 or 3 different prey distress sounds with a couple, 2 or 3 minutes of each. And like I said, I may put gaps in there between the sounds or between sequences in the sounds before I swap to a new sound. But I'm probably going to play, a rodent, a bird, a rabbit, and sometimes 2 or 3, depending on how confident I am that there are coyotes around. And from there, I typically go into, and you can move this ahead of the prey sounds or rearrange it. However, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference, but I'll start mixing those. Again, they're often referred to and marketed as breeding sounds, like you hear about the female chirps and the female whimpers and all that kind of stuff. I used to buy into all that too. But those sounds are made by all coyotes, males and females. The sounds that are referred to as breeding whimpers, female whimpers, the males do it too. The males make the exact same sounds. And they do it during breeding season, but they also do it especially during pup rearing. You'll hear them do those whimpers and whines. Those are the 2 peaks in it. But males and females will do it year round. It's just at a peak during breeding season. And so it is a good time to use that stuff during breeding season. But I'll mix those, what are typically referred to as breeding sounds, like the whimpers and whines. Some of the, I've got a sound called hooked pair, which is some growling and whining. But I'll start mixing those into my sequence. And typically I'm going to run 2 or 3 sounds of that. There's a sound called bump and grind. I'm going to play a minute or 2 of that. And if I've got to that point in the stand and I still hadn't called something up, from there I typically go, I might throw some just clean pup distress in there somewhere, but typically I'll go from those breeding sounds into my food fights or breeding fights. And like table scraps, that's where I'm going to mix table scraps in, and I'm probably going to end that stand with something like Pound Town, just an aggressive fight. Fight challenge is another good one. Some of those more aggressive fights is where I'm going to go. But what I'm trying to do with that sequence is I want to play something from, a territorial category, which is going to be territorial social, which is where those lone howls and social interactions come in. I want to play something from a prey category, which triggers hunger. And then I want to play something from, a sex drive, which is going to be your breeding sounds. And then the aggressive territorial stuff with the fight sounds. So I'm just trying to make sure that I play sounds from any of those categories. And typically I'm going to play at least a couple from each one. And so that gets in. The next question is, well, how long's your sound sequence last? And that varies. Most of my sets are probably, if I run through everything and I know coyotes are there, I'm probably getting into, at the minimum, that 20-minute mark, on into the 25 to 30-minute mark by the time I get through all of that. And where that really differs from my spring and summer calling is I'm probably gone in 12 to 15 minutes, unless I've got vocal coyotes that are not cooperating. But my sound sequences in the summertime are going to be lone howls, pup distress, pup fight. I'm done, for the most part. So that's kind of my approach on it.
That's have you ever just went out and just started with something like Pound Town just right off the bat?
I haven't. I have friends that have, and they will go almost direct. Joey Worth, prime example, Illinois. I talked to him not too long ago. I think Colt Minton's done it some.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy White in Tennessee. They are Joey and Jimmy in particular, real aggressive callers. They go right to kind of their money sound.
Yeah,
And, they don't, a lot of times they're not trying to pull something in on another sound. And so they will go right to it and have success with it. They go right to that aggressive fight stuff and call coyotes in with it without going through all the rest of it. And that's a good approach, especially if you're wanting to make a lot of stands and make them quick and call those aggressive, hard charging coyotes. That's a good approach. I typically, and I've actually got him sitting right here behind me, Greg Gallagher. We both take a slower approach to our calling where, we're starting with the howls and working through there. And a lot of times you can pick up, Greg does it on a regular basis, where you pick up a coyote on those lone howls or somewhere on those early lone howl social interaction, you get a coyote that comes in right off the bat on that. And then you'll
sure.
pick up coyote number 2 or coyote number 3 later in the set on some of those prey sounds or fight sounds. A different sound later in the set will trigger another coyote that you may not have killed the first coyote if you'd started right with the fight sounds, and you may not have killed, you may not have got a multiple coyote set if you hadn't ran a long set with a series of sounds. But
Right.
another reason that I like to start out, like I said, we're going to start hunting tomorrow, and sometimes, especially if you're on new ground, new area, you're having to start and figure out what coyotes are triggering on. And if I start noticing that I'm calling up the bulk of my coyotes on prey distress sounds, I get to that portion, I'm 15 minutes into my set, and then I'm calling in coyotes on prey sounds. Then I may start cutting some of that other stuff out and start my stand with whatever that sound is, that I see. And let's say they're triggering on cotton bomb, then I may move cotton bomb right to the front of my sound sequence and run it for, the first 3-4 minutes of the set before I go into that other stuff and just rearrange the order of my calling sequence. Because that's the thing, you can move those sounds. You can move your prey sounds to the front and your howls to the middle, or however you want to do it. And one thing I didn't mention earlier, most of the time I follow, especially this time of the year, well, really any time of the year, I follow those lone howls with either pair howls or group howls. So I do a good bit of vocal stuff on most of my stands.
I'm I'm actually real glad that you brought up the group howl, because I feel whenever I'm out, to be honest, I don't necessarily know when to use the group house. I get so caught up on the lone house, the interrogation howl, and such that I don't use the group house like I think I should. So give me an example of a time that's appropriate to use a group howl other than locating.
Yeah, I was fixing to say that group howls are excellent for locating right off the bat. But I'll describe a hunt to you. I was telling Greg about it. It was a fun hunt because I was 24 minutes into the set before I called this coyote up. We actually located the coyote at daylight on Boone Lone Wine House just before daylight. I moved around, come in from the other side of the block to get the wind right, slipped in, set up. We thought that we were probably within 200 yards of where that coyote howled. I started going. I went to a lone howl right off the. Basically, did the sequence that I just described: lone howls, social interaction, prey distress, uh, some of the social interaction sounds, fight sounds. Well, I never made it to the fight sounds. I got to through the prey distress, and we were pretty deep in that set. 18, 19 minutes, and I knew that coyote was there. The wind had been pretty good, and so my buddy Kerwayne that you see me hunting with a good bit, he said, "Well, he must not be going to come." I said, "Well, I got a couple more things I want to throw at him." So I went to a group howl, and I've done that for two reasons. I have coyotes come in on it when they won't come to other stuff, And I was trying to get him to vocalize again because he didn't answer us on any of the lone howls that I had played throughout that set.
Sure.
So a lot of times I will use a group howl on a set before I leave. Even if I've got fairly deep in the set, I will use it for two reasons. One, it will call coyotes in a lot of times when the other stuff hadn't, especially when you know they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it will make them vocalize again so that you at least know you're in the game, you're not in the game, and you can go from there with that information. But I played a group howl called Hollerback Group. And as soon as I played it, probably 30 seconds after, he done just a kind of a little, he didn't really even break into a howl, but we could hear him just kind of whine howl.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting ready to go into one of the fight sounds like Pound Town, Table Scraps, No Calls, Bloodbath. That would have been my next selection from there. And before I got to him, I could hear him coming, and he ran in, and we killed him on that group howl. But
Wow.
those are typically, I'll use it in that situation. And then, like I said before, a lot of times if I open a set with boom on house, which I do often, I'll do that series of howls. And I used to only do 2 or 3 lone howls and then wait. Now I'm apt to do, I record these counts all the time, and they'll do a sequence of howls, and that sequence of howls may be 7, 8 howls. And so a
Yeah.
lot of times I'll play whatever that natural sequence of howls was that I recorded from my coats. I'll let it play through, and it may be 7, 8 howls, and then I'll answer it with any of the other howls. I'll answer it with roo howls, or I'll answer it with smack howls, or just any one of my just any different coat howl. I'll answer that with, and a lot of times I will follow that right up with a pair or a group howl, almost like one's howl, another one's howl, and then you have that group chime in. And that's
Yeah.
how a lot of my sequences will start, especially if I'm specifically targeting coyotes. And, I'm going to be real vocal heavy any time of the year. I run and use prey distress stuff, but most of the time when I'm running prey stuff, it's either as part of a specific coyote sequence to trigger a coyote that hadn't triggered on vocals, or I'm running those prey distress sounds most of the time, primarily, especially if you see me starting sets with them. It's because I'm blind calling in areas that hold cats or fox or coyotes. I've got multiple predators, and so I will start with those prey distress sounds. But outside of that, I'm vocals heavy, and I'm not talking about just howls. I'm talking about those social interaction sounds, a sound that just released. A lot of hype behind this sound. Uh, Done really, really good with it for no longer than it's been out, or for no longer than I've been using it. It just came out today to the public, but it's called, and I love the title of it. It's a lot of fun. It's the most fun sound you'll ever use on a set with your buddies because the name of the sound is Yo Mama. So, and that's kind of what it is and how it got the name. It's two coyotes. It's kind of a social interaction sound slash fight because it's two female coyotes. There's actually a third coyote in the mix, but it's two coyotes primarily subadults making the sound, and they're bickering back and forth, and it just reminded me of that, that trash talking between a couple of people, the Yo Mama trash talk. So that's how I got the name of the sound, and man, we've had a lot of fun with it because you can every time I use it, I'll look over at my buddy and I'll say, "You know what sound that was?" Of
Yo
course,
mama.
they say, "What?" Yo Mama.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
guy kept running into
So,
yo mama. That's awesome. That's pretty great. So Torry, I want to ask you, on the sound pack that I had bought, from you, does that have a title?
it doesn't have a title. It's just 15 sounds that we released, and this newest pack doesn't have a title either. I referred to it, because several of the sounds are going to be good for breeding sounds, but it's not really a breeding pack. There are uh, I can't even remember what all's on it, but there are some really good sounds in both packs.
I was
And we try
curious.
to put a variety.
My bad. I was curious on the sound pack that I got. I've got a woodpecker sound that I've used and liked. I hadn't called anything in on it yet, but it doesn't mean I won't. But is there another prey distress on there, or is that pretty much what I got?
I can't remember. I can't remember what all we released on that particular package. Um, I think the woodpecker that you're talking about, I think it's going to be Goody Woody is the one that's in that package. And I think we released another distress or two in this package. But most, like I was saying earlier, a lot of my stuff's vocal heavy. Out of
Yep.
the 100, and I think there were 110 new sounds that I've got edited, ready to go. I think this pack makes the 45th. We'll make 45 sounds that we've released from those, and there's usually only a couple of prey distress sounds uh, in it. There's only, I think, 5 or 6 prey distress sounds out of those 110 sounds total. I will
Yeah.
record more prey stuff eventually, but uh, in this go around of sounds, it's vocal heavy. Pup distress, pup fights, lone howls, pup howls, adult howls, group howls, pair howls, beating sounds, fights. That's the bulk of what we're releasing right now.
That's all great stuff. I was curious if I was kind of missing the buck there on and not using one of your distress sounds that I've actually picked up on that sound pack I purchased from you, because I think all I've got is the woodpecker. And I've been having to go to some other distress sounds that I've already got loaded up. But I'll tell you, do you ever use woodpecker at night?
I hunt very little at night, but I know that a lot of my buddies that hunt a good bit at night, Jamie Terry, for example, uh, they were running Flycatcher and Goody Woody. Flycatcher, I'm pretty sure, is in this newest package. Goody Woody is in the package that you've got. And I think I released Deadwood Woody too, which is a raspier, more broken woodpecker sound. They actually used Dayton for they were I probably shouldn't even be telling this because they do a lot of contest hunting, but they were running those sounds with pretty good luck, and they're pretty much 100% hunting at night. So yeah, Flycatcher, Goody Woody, both of those have been good to them at night.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to see about that flycatcher. I don't think it's something that I have.
Flycatcher, yeah, Flycatcher it's a unique. I get messages. What's Flycatcher? What's Flycatcher? And we have these birds that's what they're called, flycatchers, and that's another real neat deal. If you want to see where that sound came from and that it is a legit coyote versus prey distress sound, this was a fluke accident, kind of like the pup falling in the hole, and that I was recording these little bitty pups, and they actually run across the bird. Actually, I don't know if it fell out of a nest or they jumped it up. You see the bird kind of go sailing across and it hits the ground, and those pups don't know whether they want to get it or not. And so they start messing with it, and it starts hollering, of course. And so flycatcher, and they eventually catch the bird. I record all of this, get the video of all of it. It was their first actual takedown of any kind of prey, but the audio from that flycatcher that they catch is the actual prey distress sound that you're using on that caller if you play flycatcher. And coyote pups of approximately 4 to 5 weeks old are the reason that bird is hollering. So it is a legit prey distress that originates from coyotes.
That's pretty neat. I'm gonna have to check that out. I don't have that one yet, but I definitely would be interested in it. So
Yeah,
no, dude,
I'm pretty sure.
go ahead.
I was going to say I'm 99% sure that it released in this new sound pack.
Cool. I'll have to check that out for sure. Our our video and stuff is kind of going downhill, so I'm probably going to end up wrapping this up. But guys, before we came on here, I wanted to tell you that Torry and I were talking, and he told me that if I could add 400 pounds onto my bench press, that I could come on and be part of the MFK team. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've been working. I got some 45s loaded up on my dumbbells. We're getting at it.
Man, you and me, Bob, I'm trying to add back to my bench press too. I don't know. You probably saw it. I fell out of a tree a year ago, a little over a year ago now. Just a few days was the year anniversary, and I released a video about it that I was on the fence about releasing because it was a rough deal, and so my bench press and a lot of my stuff fell off because of it. So I'm just now trying to get back to where I was. I'm 100% recovered, but I lost some strength, and that all took some of my gym time away.
I can imagine. I had made the decision that I wasn't going to bring that up if you hadn't. So that was your story to tell, and I did. I watched your video on it, and I read your long heart-filled post, and it was really inspiring, really, to just, it just kind of lets you know the importance of safety in general, and I've heard a lot of those kind of stories from guys that's had accidents, and yet you just never know, man. It's just kind of, you just never know.
Yeah, I never saw it coming, that's for sure. And I do that stuff all the time, have for years, and you know, completely unexpected, but I guarantee you something like that it'll get your attention. It's actually a good thing. I'm glad it happened. People ask me, some of my buddies now, they're like, "Man, you don't get as aggravated over the wind not blowing right and all this kind of stuff." I'd throw little fits and stuff occasionally and get
Mhm.
pissed when things wasn't going right. And after falling out of that tree, there's a lot of things that used to frustrate me that, man, they don't anymore. I enjoy a lot of stuff now more so, and it's been a year and nothing has changed with that. I continue to recognize some stuff. I mean, you hear people say it all the time that you take things for granted. When something like that happens, it'll wake you up for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. And for those of you that are watching this, that hadn't heard the story, Tori's actually got it shared on YouTube. Is that right, Tori?
Yeah, it's on our YouTube channel. Just if they
Yeah.
want to look at it, it's MFK Game Calls on YouTube. And I titled the hunt the Brokeback Comeback Hunt because when I fell out of the tree, it broke my back, and I was eager to get back in the tree, and you know, that's where the title come from. But yeah, and since people may be wondering, I was hunting out of a saddle. Nothing broke on the saddle. The saddle was great, had no issues with it. But I was using a line. What actually happened, I was using a lineman's belt that I'd been using for years. I was very confident with it. I ran up and down trees hanging lock-ons prior to having the saddle, and cutting limbs and whatever you wanted to do hands free, and putting all my weight on that belt. And I'd done it for years, and everything still looked good. And this was 100% my fault, because if you read on that stuff, all the different manufacturers will have a basically a shelf life on that stuff, to where regardless how good it looks, you should replace it in X amount of years. And different ones do different things. I don't know what the shelf life was on that belt. It no longer had a tag. I think that I actually got it with some climbing stand back years before, but I'd had it way over what would have typically been the recommended time for replacement. And it looked good. I didn't see any nick sprays, no reason to think it would break. And so I kept using it. And that was my downfall, literally. So I should have replaced the belt, because what you can't see is the deterioration over time of that stitching. And that's what gave way. The stitching gave way. Of course, then the loop just slipped right out, and I hit the ground. Now, I'm sure there are higher quality belts than what I got with a package deal on a old climbing stand years ago. But that's beside the point, because you can replace any of them for a little bit of nothing, uh, as compared to what it cost me in the ER visit, downtime. Uh, you mentioned the gym stuff, all that work in the gym. It's kind of like starting, I lose so much, and I could have lost a lot more, including life. So that would be the thing. If you're using that stuff, just replace it, and you should be plenty safe.
Yeah, just the fact of the matter that you pulled your phone out and was taking a video of yourself for your family, that says a lot about how scared you were in the moment about what could end up happening there. That's
Well, yeah, that did nobody's ever seen. I had a lot of questions about, why didn't you show the whole video? And the reason, nobody's ever seen it, none of my family and friends. But after I hit the ground, I was paralyzed for about 15 or 20 minutes. And I thought I didn't have any signal on my phone. And I thought that, I mean, I could tell, I knew I was hurt bad, and I didn't know the extent that I was hurt. I'm bleeding. At the time, I had blood, of course, pouring out of my nose,
Mhm.
but I could feel it in my throat, coming from inside. So I didn't know. I know what it feels like to think you may die. And so that's where I debated on whether or not to try to video it, but I thought, well, if I don't get out of here, I can at least say anything I need to say. And
Yeah,
so that was where that video come from, and nobody's ever seen it. It's a rough video to watch.
I can
Full
imagine.
length.
Yeah. Well,
But
I'm damn glad the outcome was how it was. I mean, you're sitting here in front of us, and you believe it made you a better man in the long run. So that was a pretty neat
yeah,
story.
yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Had a lot of people reach out to me, and I appreciate all of that, from everybody.
yeah, for sure. I imagine that you would have definitely touched a few people, and they would probably take some of that in and know. And it's making me think I need to go check the tag on my hunter safety system. Be honest, I'm pretty sure it's expired. I hate to admit it, but I think it is.
Yeah, man.
But
Don't
also,
take any chances, because it's just not worth it. For you can replace a lot of that stuff for a couple $100, and that's cheap compared to what you could lose. You know,
sure, yeah.
so
But Tori,
definitely an eye opener.
absolutely. Dude, it was real great having you on, and we're gonna try to clean some of the. We had some, obviously, guys. We had some video and a little bit of audio issues based on some internet, but doing the best we can. We're trying to make them better from here. But again, Torry Cook, thank you so much for coming on, and your buddy Greg in there. I almost wanted to call him over just to see if you weren't going to lead us down the wrong path on your call sequence. You probably just made a
Yeah,
bunch of stuff up.
he, he's
Same.
laughing in the background.
Yeah, you probably saving them all for yourself, and you just feeding us a line there. But what's up, buddy? Nice to see you back here. Looks like he and I need to start working out together. That's
Yeah,
all.
yeah. He
That's great.
Greg works at Jack Daniels.
Well,
I'm just
it,
throwing that. I'm just throwing that hint out for you.
yeah, that's awesome. I like that.
Yeah,
He's got to lift
yeah.
that bottle up and down, anyways.
That's
Yep.
right.
No, but you guys are great. Thank you so much for coming on again, Tori. And we'll do it again here real soon. I know when I was talking to you about, having you come on, we were talking about all the different things that we could go over. And because those of you that don't know, Tori's a whole lot more than just a predator hunter. He likes hunting all around. Just so happens that predator hunting is his bread and butter when it comes to career. Do you don't do anything career wise in deer hunting industry or anything like that? Do you? It's all
I mean, we make a few deer calls, and the same thing with turkeys. That was my background, was actually in the turkey and deer side of things more so than predators. But the market's flooded, and so I have focused on the business side of the predator hunting deal.
yeah,
One, because it's one of my main things, and you know, still a growing deal.
right on. That's well, it's going to be neat to see, you know, what kind of feedback we get on this. Hopefully guys will comment asking questions and doing different things. But I do want to say that as I'm going through Facebook, and I love Facebook groups, man. I love reading comments, and I hate politics in the hunting industry, particularly.
Right.
I don't know. I just been reading way too much stuff in the last, I'll say 5 or 6 days, that just kind of makes your belly rumble. I hate that. I hate it with a passion, but I love reading where a guy's giving new hunter advice and tips and all that stuff. And Torry Cook, when I come around, when I'm reading through a thread and then I see like 5, 6, 8 paragraphs that you've written out and taken the time to do for the less experienced hunters, man, it just makes me think that you're a real stand-up guy. And I know that I appreciate it, and I'm sure there's some guys out there that really do appreciate it. And so I'm just throwing that out there, man. I read every one of them.
Hey, I appreciate it. And, you know, that comes from, I know how I got here. And so I feel obligated if I'm going to sell a product and I'm going to put something out there and people are going to take the time to acknowledge me, acknowledge my products, any of that stuff, my sounds, and purchase stuff from me, I feel obligated to take the time in return to, you know, answer questions so that they can be successful with my stuff. And a lot of times they're not even using my stuff, but you know, maybe one day they will. And even if they don't, I always give straightforward stuff on that. And for the people that do support MFK and use our stuff, I really appreciate it, and I never forget how I got here. And those people are why I'm sitting here talking to you right now, and why MFK is successful. And you know, that is, it's important to me. So I've had people message me before, and they say, "Why do you?" Because it'll be on something that I post, and they'll say, "Why do you comment on every comment when somebody, you know, says something to you, instead of just dropping to the bottom of the page and doing a group thank you or a group whatever?" And it's just, part of it goes back to the way I was raised. You know, if somebody says something to me, I acknowledge it. And so I always take the time to do that. And I just feel like if they take the 2 seconds out of their day to say something to me, then I owe that in return. So that's why I do a lot of that stuff.
Outstanding. That's awesome.
I
But yeah,
appreciate it.
I've heard nothing but great things about you, man, and I was real honored when we were able to put this together. So we're gonna have to do it again real soon. Sound good?
Yeah, man. I hate I've got the slow, and you know, you do a good job of saying, well, we've got a slow, but it's on my end. I live in the middle of nowhere, so I apologize that I've got such a crappy internet connection. But maybe we can fix that up and do it again sometime if you want to listen to me again, and
That'd be
be good.
awesome.
Be fun.
Absolutely. I know when we started this, we were going to talk about the eastern coyote hunting a little bit more than anything, and we kind of just went all over the place. But that's what this is all about, man. We got on here, we talked, we had a good time. My
Yeah.
belly's rumbling at supper time, and I still just want to keep talking.
Well, you get ready, just holler at me, and you know, if there's something we need to do different, or I need to go somewhere different to get better connection, better service, I'm sure we can figure all that out, and I'll be glad to do it.
Sure. So hang on the line just for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and end this. Hey guys, those of you that stuck through this, so it close to an hour, I appreciate you. And here we go. We have MFK Torry Cook. Appreciate him so much for being on. Thanks for watching. We're out.